LoveLore Library. We will see when you exchange for a sword worth thousands in the Xianming Pavilion, the youth in the middle said with an arrogant expression. That disciple nodded. He looked straight ahead and was startled to see Enchanting at the spring. Senior brother Song, someone stole your cultivation spot. That disciple uttered hurriedly. Song Juanqiu frowned slightly and looked to his front. Indeed, there was an extremely foreign-looking girl cultivating at the spring. His expression turned unhappy instantly. Where did this person come from? How could she not know senior brother Song's rule of cultivating there for 2 hours every third day of the week before noon break? How dare she snatch the spot? Another disciple chipped in dissatisfaction. Song Juanqiu did not say anything and headed to the spring directly. Enchanting felt that her spirit root contained sufficient spirit energy and was about to break through to an orange spirit root very soon, but she suddenly heard a piercing voice. Where did this freaking girl who doesn't keep to the rules come from? This spot is reserved by my senior brother Song. Quickly make way. Chapter 306, Enchanting furrowed her brows. It was clearly the critical moment for her spirit root to make a breakthrough, but she had to hear such curses. She immediately opened her eyes and looked at that person. Other inner sect disciples cultivating in the spirit consonance river looked over immediately. What is your name? Why are you not following the rules? A disciple reproached. Rules? Enchanting narrowed her eyes and glanced over at the faces of the 3 uninvited people. When she saw Song Juanqiu's face, she could not help but scoff internally. She thought who it could be, but it was Song Juanqiu. In her previous life when she entered the inner sect, she had heard of Song Juanqiu's name before. Song Juanqiu was the son of an inner sect warden and thus had a certain position of influence in the inner sect. Although his natural endowment was not bad, he was domineering. She had heard that Song Juanqiu would head to the spirit consonance river at a stipulated timing and hog the spring which was the richest with spirit energy, yet she did not expect to cross paths with him today. The 2 disciples beside Song Juanqiu sized up Enchanting with a frown. When they noticed that her clothes did not have an inner sect embroidery, they were shocked. I was wondering what kind of person did not know the rules and didn't expect that it'd actually be an outer sect trash, a disciple said. Song Juanqiu glimpsed at Enchanting as well, and his expression became even uglier after confirming that Enchanting was only an outer sect disciple. An outer sect disciple actually dared to snatch his cultivation spot. Move away, Song Juanqiu said coldly with a grim expression. Enchanting scoffed coldly. On what basis? Song Juanqiu's face turned even uglier. On usual days, all the outer sect disciples were reverent and respectful towards inner sect disciples like them, yet, unexpectedly, this person did not know what was good for her. This is my spot. It is not a place that an outer sect disciple like you can step in carelessly. Song Juanqiu lifted his chin, and a belittling expression passed his eyes. Other onlooking disciples had surprised expressions as well. They did not notice that the girl was actually an outer sect disciple. It should be known that there were hardly any outer sect disciples in the spirit consonance river, and they had already taken this place as an exclusive right for the inner sect. Yet, unexpectedly, an outer sect disciple was actually here, and she even unluckily took Song Juanqiu's territory. Song Juanqiu had some connections in the inner sect, and even inner sect disciples would try not to get into conflicts with him. However, this outer sect disciple seemed to not know Song Juanqiu's capabilities and dared to talk back to him. Was she seeking death? Your spot. Enchanting laughed and glanced at the clear spring. Then, she looked up and tilted her head at Song Juanqiu, who was throwing his weight around. Is your name written or an image of you carved here? Why is it yours? How dare you? You're an outer sect disciple, Yet how dare you speak to senior brother Song like this? A disciple exclaimed. Enchanting looked at him coldly. There was not a slight trace of fear on her face. Song Juancho shot a cold glare at Enchanting and scoffed. What a sharp tongue. What is your name? Enchanting. Enchanting. Song Juancho said and looked at Enchanting coldly. You are an outer sect disciple. How can you be compared to inner sect disciples like us? It is already your blessing to be able to enter the Spirit Consonance River. If you continue to ask for more, you really don't know what is good for you. Chapter 307. If you know what is good for you, get lost quickly. Don't taint my spot, Song Juancho said rudely with a clear hint of annoyance. This senior brother is really funny. The Spirit Consonance River is provided for all Xianling sect disciples to use, and since when was any spot set out for a disciple? If you want this area in the spring, you can come earlier. Enchanting was not affected by Song Junqia's threats at all. Song Junqia's face darkened instantly, and his eyes turned shockingly cold. He had never seen such an ignorant outer sect disciple before. This person was really heedless of consequences. Don't be shameless. Senior brother Song said all this to give you face. Do you believe we will just throw you straight out? You, a mere outer sect disciple, dare to hog the best spot in the Spirit Consonance River. What a joke. Another disciple shouted in intimidation. The other onlooking inner sect disciples quietly shook their heads at that sight. It was simply overreaching one's ability for an outer sect disciple to contend with an inner sect disciple. Any one of those three people could easily kill Enchanting. Where did she find the boldness to fight with Song Juancho head-on? Throw me out. Enchanting suddenly laughed. With narrowed eyes, she swept a glance across the three people, and her curled lips formed a scoff. Why? Do you all wish to fight in the Spirit Consonance River? Enchanting's tone turned colder. You all spent Xianming points to enter the Spirit Consonance River, and so did I. Plus, I spent 5 times what you all paid. What gives you the right to shout at me here? I want to ask the Spirit Consonance River Warden whether there is such a rule in Xianling sect where inner sect disciples can disregard the sect rules, do whatever they want, and oppress fellow disciples. Enchanting's forceful voice crushed the silent Spirit Consonance River. The surrounding inner sect disciples were dumbfounded. Never had they expected this outer sect disciple to be so bold. Not only was she not fearful when facing 3 inner sect disciples, she even brought up the sect rules so rationally. And they were very clear that there was no error in what Enchanting said. The Spirit Consonance River was originally opened for all disciples to use. Although inner sect disciples use it more frequently, outer sect disciples had to pay 5 times the number of Xianming points should they want to use it. They, themselves, were pressed for Xianming points to use the Spirit Consonance River. How much did this outer sect disciple go through to be able to exchange for the usage rights? Song Junqia's face turned red. He never expected this outer sect disciple to actually be so daring. However, in consideration of what Enchanting said about notifying the warden, he did not dare to mess with her. Chapter 308. Afterward, Song Juancho walked away without looking back. The 2 disciples following beside Song Juancho saw this and murmured. Senior brother Song thought too highly of her already. It is simply a fool's talk for her to enter the inner sect. Song Juancho scoffed. If she can't enter the inner sect, well, treat it as that she has good luck. If she enters the inner sect, Song Juancho narrowed his eyes into slits, and a vicious look flashed across his eyes. The 2 disciples beside him made eye contact and understood what Song Juancho was thinking of. After chasing Song Juancho and the rest away, Enchanting calmed her heart once again. The urge for the spirit root to break through which stopped just now continued to build up again, and the warm sensation surged into her abdomen rapidly. Spirit energy lingered around the spirit root and nourished it without a sound. Suddenly, Enchanting felt an unusual burn at the area where her spirit root was, and subsequently, her body temperature rose up. A flow of hot air seemed to rush up from her abdomen to the top of her skull. Instinctively, Enchanting used all her energy and suppressed that intense heat, not allowing it to spread to other areas. As the temperature rose bit by bit, her face turned from white to red. In the spirit consonance river, the faint red light at her abdomen area gradually turned orange. Orange spirit root. Enchanting immediately held her breath. The transformation of the spirit root caused the heat around her body to vanish immediately, and she could clearly sense that the spirit root in her body was completely reborn. From red spirit root to orange spirit root, Enchanting took a few months, and this breakthrough happened to resolve one of her biggest worries. Although it was still an orange spirit root now, as long as her spirit root could be upgraded. In the future, it would be possible to achieve a yellow spirit root, green spirit root, and even the blue spirit root that was stolen from her. Overwhelmed with joy, she took a deep breath to forcefully suppress her excitement. She always felt that there were traces of her spirit root making a breakthrough previously but never managed to reach the last step. However, the rich spirit energy in the spirit consonance river gave her the finishing push. Enchanting could feel that when her spirit root transformed, her abilities had also advanced to the peak of Connate level 8 from the previous Connate level 7. In just 2 hours, she actually advanced one entire level. This was simply not what ordinary people dared to think of. 15,000 Xianming points could exchange for such a massive improvement. This was more than worth it to her. The last hint of heartache vanished into thin air at that moment. Enchanting did not spend too much time on improving her spirit root. She only had 6 hours, and once it was over, it would be impossible for her to gather enough Xianming points to cultivate here again in a short span of time. Immediately, Enchanting calmed her heart down and directed her energy all over her body, as though she wished to absorb even more in this short 6 hours. 6 hours passed in the blink of an eye. When Enchanting opened her eyes, there were no other disciples in the spirit consonance river anymore. Enchanting's time in the spirit consonance river was up, and she could only leave. The gains today satisfied her fully. There was still half a month before the inner sect assessment, and she must reach Connate level 9 in this period of time. Otherwise, the probability of winning against the top 3 elites on the ranking chart was too small. In the next few weeks, Enchanting was absorbed in an almost mad cultivation. Chapter 309. She, who usually rubbed the silver wolf's fur and teased the little lightning dragon, was completely focused on cultivation. The little lightning dragon, which was heavily injured from the Spirit Condensation Mountain Village incident, was shoved to the silver wolf to take care of it. The silver wolf looked coldly at the little lightning dragon, which was forcefully shoved to his paw. However, the little lightning dragon was trembling in fear, and before the silver wolf even took a glimpse at it, it immediately fainted by the silver wolf's paw. That morning, Enchanting washed up and prepared to head to the martial arts hall to cultivate. When she reached the entrance of the martial arts hall, she suddenly saw pale Yun Shu. "Senior brother Yun. Your injuries have not fully recovered. Why are you out already?" Enchanting was a little surprised. Yun Shu smiled faintly. "Thank you for worrying about me. My injuries are not serious anymore. It is all thanks to you for helping me to obtain the Shangyue fire tripod back. I used it to cultivate for many days, and my spirit root recovered. I am out for a stretch today." The injuries Yun Shu sustained previously almost caused him to drop the idea of cultivation. If not for Enchanting's plot for Lu Xiuwen to automatically return the Shangyue fire tripod, it would really be difficult for him to find a way out. Really? That's good then. Enchanting smiled earnestly. Yunshu's fall in her previous life had always been a sore point for her. If she could witness him overcoming the disaster and pulling himself together in this lifetime, she would be relieved. As they were talking, Su Wan and a few other disciples walked past. The moment Su Wan saw Enchanting and Yunshu, her face turned a little pale, and she looked away instinctively. Junior sister Su, do you know that there were many shocking incidents in the outer sect recently? Lu Yu, who was walking beside Su Wan, did not notice Enchanting and Yunshu and spoke her mind. What incidents? Su Wan asked. A few days ago, Elder Huang from the outer sect sword faction accepted an amazing genius from the Tianfu family clan called Yuan Wei. I heard that Yuan Wei has a green spirit root, and his natural endowments were brilliant. The Tianfu family clan devoted much effort to raise him into an extremely skilled person. Lu Yu replied. A disciple who was walking with them was suddenly energetic. Yuan Wei from the Tianfu family clan. I've heard of him before. Although he did not enter a sect previously, he had a mighty figure as his master. He is highly skilled and is very famous in the Dongqing area where the Tianfu family clan was at. People said he is a rare genius in Dongqing. Obviously. If he did not have the skills, why would Elder Huang make an exception to accept him into the outer sect? I even heard that Elder Huang thought very highly of him. Not only did Elder Huang accept Yuan Wei as a disciple, but Elder Huang also made an exception to allow Yuan Wei to participate in the inner sect assessment this year. Lu Yu chipped in. He just entered the sect but can participate in the inner sect assessment? He must be really powerful. If the rumors are true and Yuan Wei is able to enter the top 10 in the ranking charts in the inner sect assessment this year, his future is really limitless. Lu Yu nodded. Just as she was to say something to Su Wan, she suddenly saw Su Wan's stiff expression. Lu Yu instinctively looked around and suddenly saw Enchanting and Yunshu. Immediately, Lu Yu scoffed. However, that is not considered a shocking incident. In the outer sect of Xianling's sect, there is still another shocking incident which is bigger and more interesting. Oh. What is it? Tell me about it. Lu Yu looked at Enchanting and let out a cold laugh. What else can it be? It is just that a certain person overestimated her abilities. After picking up a treasure and presenting it to an elder, she gained a generous number of Xianming points for nothing. Chapter 310. Lu Yu continued talking. This was originally a great thing, but someone just had to overestimate her own abilities. She did not use those Xianming points to cultivate honestly and insisted on exchanging for the qualifications to participate in the inner sect assessment. She even excitedly exchanged for the spirit consonants river's usage rights for a few hours. Lu Yu said, won't that someone just look at what spirit root she has? While Lu Yu did not mention the name, all the disciples present knew who she was talking about. The news of Enchanting exchanging for the inner sect assessment's participation qualification and the spirit consonants river's usage rights had already circulated in the outer sect over the past 2 days. All the outer sect disciples who heard of the news thought that Enchanting was crazy. Otherwise, why would she do such a wild thing? Senior sister Lu, don't talk about it anymore. Let's leave first. Su Wan mumbled as she tugged on Lu Yu's sleeves. Lu Yu frowned and said softly, are you really easy to be bullied? Are you still not clear what kind of person Enchanting is? If not for her, why would senior brother Lu be flogged so many strokes? Senior brother Lu is still laying on bed to recuperate now. A bitter expression was seen on Su Wan's face as though she suffered a huge wrong. Yunshu's face darkened immediately when they heard the cutting remarks. He instinctively wanted to walk up to them but was held back by Enchanting. Yi Qingtang shook her head at Yun Shu slightly with a seeming smile. Senior brother Yun, why bother arguing with the likes of them? Are you not angry? Yun Shu was surprised. Yi Qingtang chuckled. If a dog bites me, should I bite it back? It was not for them to comment on whether she had the ability. On the day of the assessment, everything would be apparent. Yun Shu was a little shocked and could not help but laugh. Forget it. It is good to ignore them as well. However, what you did this time was indeed rash. I know that your natural endowment is good, but recklessly participating in this year's intersect assessment, Yun Shu spoke with a serious expression. Yi Qingtang said, don't worry, senior brother Yun. Since I did it, I must have a certain level of confidence. Seeing her confidence, Yun Shu did not say anything more. Perhaps even Yun Shu himself did not notice that after the Shangyue fire tripod incident, he was no longer as gentle as before, and there was a fierce expression in his eyes. After sorting their thoughts, the two of them entered the martial arts hall to cultivate without wasting any more time. Su Wan watched Yun Shu and Yi Qingtang leave and bit her finger secretly. She had never expected that Yun Shu still had a chance for recovery while Lu Xiuwen. Yi Qingtang and Yun Shu had just entered the martial arts hall, but a disciple notified them that Elder Huang from the outer sect sword faction summoned Shen Qianshu. Yi Qingtang immediately headed over. In the big hall, Elder Huang had a dignified expression, and an unusual expression passed by in his eyes when he saw Yi Qingtang walking in. Disciple greets Elder Huang, Yi Qingtang said with a kneel. Raise. Elder Huang scanned Yi Qingtang. He naturally did have some impression of Yi Qingtang. After all, she was the only red spirit root whom Xianling sect accepted in the past 100 years. But because of that, Elder Huang did not pay too much attention to this disciple as it was difficult for there to be any improvements since her spirit root was too poor. Yet, unexpectedly. Yi Qingtang, I heard that you exchanged for qualification to participate in the intersect assessment this year. Elder Huang asked straight to the point. Yes. Yi Qingtang replied. Chapter 311 Ridiculous. Elder Huang's face darkened. Do you know how dangerous the intersect assessment is? The opponents that you'll be facing are the elite disciples on the ranking chart. As a new disciple who just entered the sect, where did your guts to spar with them come from? Elder Huang had a strict expression, and there was no warmth in his tone. When he heard of this shocking move that Yi Qingtang took a few days ago, he was astonished. Although he did not pay much attention to Yi Qingtang, she was, after all, still an outer sect disciple. Given her abilities, would there not be a spectacle if she went into the ring? Where was he going to place his face as the outer sect elderate then? I know. Yi Qingtang replied calmly. Elder Huang's expression was still foul. You know. If you knew, why would you still do such a thing? In the top 10 disciples of the outer sect, the poorest skilled one is already at the early stage of Khanate level 9. If you battle them, do you know how severely injured you will be? There is even a possibility of dying on the ring. You're simply taking your life as a joke. So be it if it were other disciples, while they might be embarrassed should they enter the arena, they would not be seriously injured. But Yi Qingtang, as a new disciple, probably had not mastered the foundations and was only a red spirit root. How would she be able to withstand those top 10 elites' attacks? If she entered the ring, the best outcome was to be severely injured while the worst. The more Elder Huang thought about it, the more he found it too dangerous. Thus, he summoned Yi Qingtang to persuade her. Yi Qingtang watched Elder Huang persuade her, but her heart did not waver at all as she stood there without any expression. Elder Huang was helpless when saw how stubborn she was. Thinking of how she spent such a large sum of Xianming points to exchange for this qualification to participate in the assessment, she must be determined. I'll not say anything else. If things really reach that stage, you should admit defeat before it's too late. Don't fight head-on. If you injure yourself, any opportunity in the future will have to be given up, Elder Huang said helplessly. A smile passed Yi Qingtang's eyes. While Elder Huang was stern and his words were mostly concerned about his face, she could feel from that last sentence that Elder Huang was really afraid she would die on the ring. I understand. Thank you for your reminder, Elder Huang, Yi Qingtang said. Elder Huang sighed and allowed her to retreat. However, as he watched Yi Qingtang leave, there was a worried look on his face. If Yi Qingtang's natural endowment was as brilliant as Yuan Weiss, he would not have persuaded her. Elder Huang was slightly comforted only when he thought of Yuan Wei. Yuan Weiss' skills were above average, and he was personally accepted as a disciple by him. If he could enter the top 10 on the ranking charts in this assessment, he would really gain a lot of face. Half a month flew by, and the outer sect finally welcomed the most serious assessment. All the outer sect disciples gathered at the square on that day. Watching the 8 trigrams ring in the middle of the square, everyone's hearts fluttered. I wonder how murderous this year's inner sect assessment will be. What else can it be? Do you think everyone has the opportunity to enter the inner sect? Just look at the conditions of those people on the ranking chart. Ji Xianyuan has already reached the peak of Khanate level 9 this year and is only one stage away from Martial Qi. Chapter 312, Senior Brother Ji is the first on the ranking chart and also the first in the outer sect. Who would dare to spar with him? Isn't that seeking death? Not just Senior Brother Ji, but which person on the ranking chart can we defeat? Moreover, only the top 3 elites in today's assessment will be accepted into the inner sect. Even if one managed to clinch the 4th place, they would still be unable to enter the inner sect. Unless you have outstanding natural endowments and the inner sect elders took a fancy on you to make an exception and bring you into the inner sect, you all can just dream on. Many outer sect disciples were gathered at the place and actively discussed the inner sect assessment this year. The wide difference between the inner sect and outer sect was known by everyone. Even if outer sect disciples like them were the best in the outer sect, they would not be able to defeat the low-ranked inner sect disciples. All the outer sect disciples had their eyes set on entering the inner sect, but there were only a few people who had this chance every year. Will the few elders from the inner sect come today? A new disciple who just entered the sect this year asked with twinkling eyes. Yes. The inner sect elders will observe from a side in the assessment every year. Remember, fella. This is the only chance for outer sect disciples like us to see the inner sect elders. You must open your eyes wide and take a clear look later. Thank you for your reminder, Senior Brother. I will definitely remember. That new disciple nodded repeatedly, but he took a glimpse of the ring's sidelines. Senior Brother, why do I not see the inner sect elders? Are you dumb? Will the inner sect elders stand beside the ring? Didn't you see the observation tower behind the ring? The inner sect elders are already in the observation tower right now. They will be able to see everything that happens in the ring later clearly. So that is how it is. But speaking about this, there are still some interesting things to watch this year. What? Didn't you hear? There are 2 dark horses from the outer sect entering the ring this year. One of them is Tain Fu family clan's Yuan Wei, whom Elder Huang personally recommended, while the other is Yi Qingtang, the only red spirit root in our outer sect. Another disciple had a surprised expression on his face. He did hear of Yuan Wei's name before and felt that Yuan Wei had the qualifications to challenge the top 10 people on the ranking chart. But Yi Qingtang. Don't think about it already. Just treat it as watching a spectacle. She wants to humiliate herself, so why should we be worried? Just treat it as a comedy to enjoy. At that instant, everyone was waiting for the assessment to start. Chapter 313. I heard that the outer sect's Ji Xianyuan is skilled and is ranked first on the ranking chart. I wonder if anyone will challenge him today, the herbal faction elder said with a laugh. Then, he seemed to have recalled something and looked at Elder Lin. I heard that Lin Feng challenged the disciple who was ranked third on the outer sect's ranking chart last month and was victorious. He is already ranked third on the ranking chart now. Upon hearing the words Lin Feng, there was a slight change in Elder Lin's expression. Although Feng is young, he is diligent. I am not worried about him. That is a given. Lin Feng is your grandson, and his natural endowments have been good since young. Holding the same family values as you, it seems to me that he will be able to make it today. The herbal faction elder laughed. Whether he has the qualifications to enter the inner sect is still dependent on his performance today. This has nothing to do with whether he is my grandson or not, Elder Lin said. The herbal faction elder laughed and did not say anything further. The few inner sect elders were all aware that the disciple placed third on the ranking charts was the grandchild of Elder Lin from the inner sect sword faction. He was indeed above average, and if there were no accidents, he should be able to enter the inner sect this year. After taking a look at the outer sect disciples below, Elder Lin glimpsed at Elder Qin, whose expression was slightly ugly. Elder Qin, it's been a few days since I saw you. Why are you so unhappy? Could it be that you regret granting Enchanting the qualification to take part in this year's assessment? Although there was no emotion in Elder Lin's tone, there was a hint of sarcasm in his words. Half a month ago, Enchanting presented a mystic treasure of the Blood Moon sect to Elder Qin, and Elder Qin rewarded Enchanting with a huge sum of Xianming points. Yet unexpectedly, these Xianming points were actually used to exchange for the inner sect assessment participation qualification. A new disciple who just entered Xianling sect for a few months actually had the nerve to take part in this assessment. If this was not seeking death, then what was this? Elder Qin was even more displeased after being mocked by Elder Lin. You're overthinking, Elder Lin. Since Enchanting wants to do it, it is inconvenient for me to say anything. I am lost in thoughts only because I lost something. Thank you for worrying. Elder Qin was indeed in a foul mood at that point. That day when Enchanting handed the revolving soul orb to him, he kept it carefully once he returned to the sect. But a few days ago, that revolving soul orb disappeared all of a sudden. He searched every corner in his room but could not find any trace of it and almost fainted in anger. Elder Qin was aware of how rare the revolving soul orb was. However, before the treasure that he just obtained was warm from his touch, it was already gone. He was really infuriated. Elder Lin looked at Elder Qin's frustrated behavior, and a pleased expression emerged in his eyes. Then, he turned away and replied. Since you lost something, you should search carefully. All right. It is about time, the competition is going to start soon. Let's just watch first, said the Fist faction's elder. The square was extremely boisterous. Disciples surrounded the ring, and some were burning with eagerness to try it out while some were waiting to watch the show. At the other end of the ring, 10 elegant and talented young disciples stood there in an imposing manner. Those were the disciples ranked top 10 on the ranking charts. Although Dai Changming was in 10th place, his demeanor was also different from other disciples. The appearance of these 10 people attracted much attention. Envious and fearful eyes were cast towards them. And just as everyone's attention was focused on those 10 people, Enchanting and the Blood Moon sect elder entered the square without a sound. Chapter 314. These 10 people's demeanors are indeed different from everyone else's. They're definitely top-notch elites. The Blood Moon sect elder narrowed his eyes while looking at the 10 people on the ranking chart. Just standing in the square, he could already feel the rich air around them, which made his blood boil with temptation. "Girl, are you competing with a few of them today?" The Blood Moon sect elder took a look at the 10 people standing on stage and then looked at Enchanting. Enchanting made huge improvements over the past few days, and this caused him to be even gloomier. If Enchanting did not gift the revolving soul orb, it would have exploded in these few days. Unfortunately, man proposes, God disposes. Enchanting shook her head. There were countless rounds of competition in the inner sect assessment where outer sect disciples were individually selected. The ring today is to contend for the top 100 in the outer sect. "I am not participating in it," Enchanting said coldly. The 100 people who won today still needed to continue sparring to select the top 50. This continued, and ultimately, the top 10 people on the ranking chart would be born. Until a new batch of top 10 disciples remained, Enchanting would not take part in it. She had the participation qualification where she could compete on the last day and did not need to go through back-to-back sparring. It was considered as one of the benefits of the 30,000 Xianming points spent. Not participating? Then what are you here for? The Blood Moon sect elder had a bewildered look. Enchanting glimpsed at him. "Have you heard the saying to know one's own strength and the enemy's is the sure way to victory?" Everyone who met the requirements in the outer sect could take part in the first day of the inner sect assessment. The wide square was boisterous, and disciples clenched their fists in preparation of a good fight. Enchanting and the Blood Moon sect elder found a corner to observe the match where disciples full of vigor and vitality gave their all. After rounds of sparring, Enchanting gradually had an insight into the disciples' skills. Of course, the top 10 people on the ranking charts were skillful. However, Yuan Wei, whom Elder Huang recommended, displayed extraordinary skills on the first day of the competition. In the successive sparring, he never lost once and very quickly became a dark horse in this year's assessment with his brilliant results. From dawn to dusk, the competition for the first day lasted for an entire day, and the 100 people who ultimately succeeded were to take part in the competition on the second day. Seeing that the competition for the day was over, Enchanting dragged the Blood Moon sect elder and left. The next morning, the assessment continued. Compared to the previous day, although the number of assessment takers reduced by half, the battles were increasingly intense. 50 people were eventually selected after half a day of battle. And the third day. With 10 people being able to make it out of the 50, the fights were even fiercer. In this period of time, Enchanting went to observe the matches every day. Until the assessment on the third day was over and only 10 outer sect elites remained ultimately. And among these 10 people, there was Yuan Wei, whom Elder Huang recommended. On the fourth morning, which was also the final battle for the inner sect assessment, the new batch of top 10 disciples on the ranking chart was already standing beside the ring. Today, the 10 of them will contend for the top 3 positions which would allow them to enter the inner sect. Elder Huang was jovial these few days. Yesterday, Yuan Wei was extraordinary in the competition. Not only did he enter the top 10, he even placed fourth on the ranking chart, and this really inflated his self-esteem. When he saw Elder Lin from the inner sect yesterday, Elder Lin even offered rare praises. The warden in charge of the competition stood in the center of the ring to declare the start of the competition. Many outer sect disciples were gathered in the square to watch the blood-filled battles amongst the top disciples. Yuan Wei stood below the ring and glanced across the sight before him. Suddenly, Yuan Wei took a step into the arena. His appearance resulted in a flurry of gasps. It should be known that Yuan Wei was currently placed fourth in the ranking chart. Now that he entered the ring once again, there was only one possibility. He wanted to challenge the holder of the top 3 positions. Disciple, Yuan Wei, wishes to challenge the third place, senior brother Lin Feng. Yuan Wei's face had an arrogance of the youth. Loud cheers erupted immediately. Standing below the ring, Lin Feng's lips curled into a smile, which added a tinge of haughtiness on his originally good-looking face. Chapter 316, Junior Brother Yun, since that is what you want, I can only play the game with you till the end. Lin Feng smiled, and with the point of his toes, he leaped into the arena. There were cheers below the ring. Yuan Wei was the biggest dark horse this year and was victorious in all his matches over the past 3 days. Now that he was challenging Lin Feng today, many were boiling with excitement. Do you think that Yuan Wei's chance of winning is bigger or senior brother Lin's chance of winning is bigger? The onlooking disciples discussed fervently. Yuan Wei's skills is indeed powerful, but senior brother Lin is the elite of the elite in our outer sect. Furthermore, his improvement this year is extremely huge. I think that Yuan Wei may not be able to win. Yuan Wei has not lost any round until now, and his moves are quick and fierce. It is still not certain who will win and who will lose in this battle. As everyone was caught up in their discussion, on the ring, Yuan Wei had already attacked. His figure turned into a shadow and the sword into a cold light which flashed across the ring and charged towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng stood rooted to the ground without moving. His narrowed eyes reflected Yuan Wei's shadow, and he smiled briefly. This little junior brother was really so arrogant. Just as Yuan Wei was about to attack Lin Feng suddenly vanished. Losing his target, Yuan Wei was instinctively stunned for a second, but before he could return to his senses, Lin Feng already appeared behind him, and his sword directly stabbed towards Yuan Wei's shoulder. In almost an instant, Yuan Wei turned around and did a backflip, avoiding this fatal blow with only one hand on the ground to support his body. But before Yuan Wei adjusted his posture, Lin Feng already chased after him swiftly with fancy swordplay. The countless glistenings of the sword entered Yuan Wei's eyes. Alarmed, he only managed to raise a sword to counter Lin Feng's attack. The two swords clashed, and a loud clank rang. Yuan Wei used the force to pull some distance between Lin Feng, wanting to change from being on the offense to defense. However, when he did a flip and struck his sword towards Lin Feng was already prepared. He immediately lifted his sword and hurled Yuan Wei's sword away while, at the same time, landing a fierce kick on Yuan Wei's abdomen. In just a moment, Yuan Wei was kicked out of the ring by Lin Feng. Yuan Wei, who fell off the ring, appeared in a rather bad state as he looked in astonishment at Lin Feng, who was looking down at him from a height. That was a good fight, junior brother Yuan Wei. Lin Feng nodded at Yuan Wei with a seeming smile. Although his words were humble, there was arrogance in his voice. Yuan Wei frowned, and Elder Huang came forward to help him up. You've already performed very well. However, it's still too difficult to compete for the top 3 positions. Lin Feng's improvement this year is very huge, and he simply isn't your match. Although Yuan Wei lost, Elder Huang was already extremely satisfied with Yuan Wei's performance over the past few days. He was similarly shocked at Lin Feng's improvement and with his current skills. But, he was afraid that Yuan Wei lost while Lin Feng won, and the onlooking disciples below the ring became restless. Senior brother Lin is still amazing. Yuan Wei is so powerful but could only pass 4 moves. TSK. This is just scary. On the ring, Lin Feng did not walk down from the stage after the sparring. He lifted his chin slightly and glanced across the people. When his eyes fell on Ji Xianyuan, an ambitious expression flashed past his eyes. Chapter 317, Ranking Chart 2. Since I am in the ring, I also have a target whom I wish to challenge, Lin Feng suddenly said with a smile. Then, he raised his sword and pointed its tip at the first person in the outer sect, Ji Xianyuan. Senior brother Ji, are you willing to come up and exchange a few moves as a teaching? With that said, everyone below the ring cheered immediately. Lin Feng defeated Yuan Wei with only 4 moves, and this shocked everyone. Now that he actually wanted to challenge Ji Xianyuan, the number 1 on the ranking chart, it would really be a highlight match in the outer sect. In the observation tower, there was no expression on Elder Lin's face and only a hint of satisfaction in his eyes as he watched Lin Feng's arrogance. How could his grandson be satisfied with a 3rd place? Ji Xianyuan was called out by Lin Feng before everyone. This was the first time someone dared to challenge him since the first day of the inner sect assessment. With everyone's cheers, Ji Xianyuan slowly walked up to the ring with a calm expression. Lin Feng's lips curled into a smile as he watched Ji Xianyuan walk up the arena. Please offer me some teachings, senior brother Ji. Ji Xianyuan cast Lin Feng a cold look and said calmly, you may attack first, junior brother Lin. Ever since Ji Xianyuan first entered the ranking chart, he had never been defeated in any match. His position on the ranking chart only moved up and never fell. After he topped the ranking chart, no one could shake his position regardless of who challenged him. Lin Feng was really the only person in this past year who dared to challenge Ji Xianyuan's number 1 position. However, everyone witnessed Lin Feng's improvements this year. Everyone was stirred by this fierce struggle between 2 equally matched opponents as they watched the intense battle that was about to happen soon without blinking an eye. Lin Feng narrowed his eyes. A sharp expression passed by his eyes briefly as he looked at the composed and steady Ji Xianyuan. However, he was not anxious to attack. He was not Yuan Wei, who only knew to act rashly. Just as Lin Feng was quietly observing Ji Xianyuan, he suddenly grabbed an opportunity and leaped forward with his sword pointing at Ji Xianyuan's skull. There was no emotion in Ji Xianyuan's eyes. Looking at the sword that was in close proximity, he did not dodge at all. Right when the crowd was nervous, he suddenly threw out a punch at the last second when the sword was about to touch him. This punch accurately landed on the hand which Lin Feng held the sword in. What seemed like a light punch, however, snapped the sword out of Lin Feng's hand. The sword that left Lin Feng's hand gleamed in the midair. Before Lin Feng could react, Ji Xianyuan's upper body was bent forward slightly, and he landed a fierce punch on Ji Xianyuan's stomach. With just a punch, Lin Feng was forced backward. His face turned white in an instant, and cold sweat trickled down from his forehead. There was dead silence below the ring. No one expected that Ji Xianyuan could cause Lin Feng to pale in just 2 moves. Just looking at Lin Feng's contorted expression, it was easy to know how heavy that punch was. These were the skills of the number 1 on the ranking chart. A powerful combat ability that could be comparable to that of an inner sect disciple's. Lin Feng panted faintly. Forcefully straightening himself, he looked at the emotionless Ji Xianyuan opposite of him. Senior brother Ji is indeed powerful. I admit defeat. No matter how unwilling he was, he clearly saw how frightening the gap between him and Ji Xianyuan was. Even if he continued fighting, he would only be embarrassing himself. After hearing Lin Feng's words, Ji Xianyuan turned around and walked down the ring silently as though nothing ever happened just now. Chapter 318, Ranking Chart 3. The number 2 on the excellence roll initially had the thought of challenging Ji Xianyuan, but after witnessing the sight, he completely waved the white flag and dropped the idea of snatching the number 1 position. Only God knows that Ji Xianyuan was this powerful. In the observation tower, Elder Lin saw Lin Feng's defeat, but there was not much expression on his face. As the elders saw that there was no one else who went up to the ring, they knew that the inner sect assessment for this year would conclude soon. The top 3 on the excellence roll is already finalized. We should give them the qualifications to enter the inner sect. Elder Lin stood up slowly and was about to grant the top 3 the inner sect entrance qualification with the other 3 elders. The disciples in the square thought about how exciting the matches were today and wished they had such powerful skills as well. Elder Huang, who was beside the ring, heaved a sigh of relief secretly. When he saw that the few elders walking out from the observation tower, Elder Huang immediately welcomed them with other outer sect elders. "Greetings, elders," Elder Huang said. "Elder Huang, Yuan Wei did pretty well this year. The person you selected is amazing," Elder Lin praised. Elder Huang was delighted and felt that his face was glowing. "Since the assessment this year has ended, the top 3 can be granted admission into the inner sect already," Elder Lin said. "Noted." Elder Huang nodded and immediately turned to walk up the ring. Under everyone's gaze, he announced, "The inner sect assessment today is already over." Before Elder Huang finished his sentence, a clear female voice suddenly sounded from the crowd. "Elder Huang, I have not taken my assessment." With that, Elder Huang felt a tug on his heart, and everyone looked in the direction of the voice. What appeared before their eyes was the small-framed Enchanting was walking towards the ring. This sight caused Elder Huang's heart to rise up his throat. Discussions exploded in the square. Enchanting. She really dared to come. It can't be. I didn't see her entering the ring these few days. I still thought those rumors were false. Don't joke anymore. With just that level of skills, she may just be beaten into a pulp by all these senior brothers. Don't be blinded by her face. There was a flurry of discussions in the square. Everyone felt that Enchanting must be crazy. Otherwise, why would she still dare to seek death after witnessing so many rounds of the competition? As they were discussing, Enchanting had already walked up to the ring and handed the assessment qualification waste tablet that she exchanged from Elder Qin into Elder Huang's hands. Elder Huang frowned in exasperation that his words fell on deaf ears and wished he could just pull Enchanting down from the stage. Why is this girl so stubborn? Does she know how dangerous this ring is? This is my assessment qualification. Please verify it, Elder Huang. Elder Huang's lips twitched as he looked at the waste tablet in his hands and tried to maintain his composure. This is the waste tablet for the inner sect assessment. Are you aware that if you use this qualification, you'll have to directly challenge the top 3 people on the excellence roll? Elder Huang hinted at Enchanting for the last time. Her waste tablet could allow her to skip the competitions in the previous day but also restricted the opponents that she had to challenge to the disciples who were placed in the top 3 positions. I am aware. Enchanting nodded. Elder Huang was really mad that he did not know what to do. Enchanting, since that is what you want, I will permit you to start your assessment. However, remember not to force yourself. In the end, Elder Huang still could not help but advise her again. Chapter 319, Ranking Chart, 4, Enchanting nodded. The assessment continued, and Elder Huang could only walk down the stage temporarily. The inner sect assessment, which should have ended, was extended because of Enchanting's arrival, and the disciples who were about to leave stopped in their tracks. Perhaps in scorn or curiosity, their eyes were fixed on Enchanting. After a few rumors from the insiders, many were more or less aware of the background of this girl on the stage. Elder Lin and the rest, who were about to grant qualification certificates to the top 3 on the excellence roll, stopped walking as well and waited at the side of the ring for the last match to start. Disciple Enchanting is contending for a qualification to enter the inner sect. Enchanting declared on the ring. This neither haughty nor humble statement attracted many cheers. Below the ring, Lin Feng looked at Enchanting and smiled briefly. He shrugged his shoulders and walked up into the ring with large steps where his tall frame faced Enchanting. Elder Huang from aside was extremely conflicted. Although Lin Feng lost to Ji Xianyuan, his skills were evidently way above that of normal outer sect disciples. How could Yi Qingtang fight him? Please take care of me, junior sister Yi. The corners of his lips were tugged up. He was the third on the excellence roll, and since Yi Qingtang wanted to contend for the inner sect qualification, she would naturally spar with him. Looking up towards Lin Feng, who was already ready to strike an attack, Yi Qingtang suddenly spoke out. Wait. Lin Feng initially wanted to end this nonsense of a competition as soon as possible and thus could not help but frown when he heard Yi Qingtang. Why? Could it be that you regret your decision? At that instant, Elder Huang earnestly wished Yi Qingtang would have a sudden awakening and quickly come down from the ring. There were muffled laughs among the surrounding disciples as well. Indeed. Not many had the boldness to spar with such a skilled elite like Lin Feng. However, just as everyone assumed Yi Qingtang regretted going into the ring, Yi Qingtang suddenly lifted a hand. Her finger moved past Lin Feng on the stage and pointed at Ji Xianyuan, who was standing below the ring. I want to challenge senior brother Ji, the number 1 on the excellence roll. Yi Qingtang's words caused a blast of comments in the square. Is Yi Qingtang crazy? She actually wants to challenge senior brother Ji directly. What kind of joke is this? With her skills, she might not even make it through one move from senior brother Ji. All the disciples were completely shocked by Yi Qingtang's words. Elder Huang's heart, which had just calmed down, raced immediately. He widened his eyes in disbelief and looked at Yi Qingtang. On the ring, Lin Feng was dumbfounded for a moment. An astonished expression flashed across his eyes. He obviously did not expect Yi Qingtang's appetite to be this huge. She actually initiated a challenge to Ji Xianyuan directly. Lin Feng narrowed his eyes, and his lips curled into a sarcastic smile. With a casual shrug, he turned to look at Ji Xianyuan. Senior brother Ji, junior sister Yi wishes to spar with you. I guess you can only help to fulfill her wish. Then, Lin Feng jumped down from the ring. There was no expression on Ji Xianyuan's face as he walked up to the ring after casting a look at Yi Qingtang. According to the inner sect assessment qualification that Yi Qingtang obtained, she could challenge any one of the top 3 disciples on the excellence roll. However, the act of directly challenging the number 1 was unbelievably insane. Chapter 320, The Top of the Outer Sect. 1. Senior Brother Ji, I'm honored to learn from you. Yi Qingtang finally smiled as she saw Ji Xianyuan walking onto the arena. Ji Xianyuan just nodded slightly. His face was expressionless. After Lin Feng challenged the top position of Ji Xianyuan, all disciples knew the true ability of Ji Xianyuan. His ability was comparable with inner sect disciples. Who else in the outer sect dared to challenge him? Yet, unexpectedly, Yi Qingtang was so bold. Elder Qin, who was standing at the side of the arena, frowned upon hearing Yi Qingtang's choice. Elder Lin's showed a peculiar sight as he witnessed the concern Elder Qin showed. The warden who was in charge of the arena announced the beginning of the competition after confirming with Yi Qingtang. This competition was different from the rest today. The whole square was silent after the announcement was made. This was completely a one-sided challenge. No one even had any expectations for Yi Qingtang. When everyone was out of interest, Yi Qingtang squinted her eyes. However, she did not begin her attack. Instead, she was staring at Ji Xianyuan cautiously. Ji Xianyuan took a quick glance at Yi Qingtang and attacked instantly. His body appeared like a streak of light on the arena. He did not even pull out his sword as he dashed towards Yi Qingtang like the wind. His fist smashed towards Yi Qingtang's temple as he landed on the ground. However, the instant when Ji Xianyuan raised his fist, Yi Qingtang's heel turned, and her tiny body moved sideways. The sharp wind created by the fist flew through her hair on the temple. Boom! The wind created by the fist smashed the stone pillar behind Enchanting. The crushed stones flew away and dropped to the ground. As the dust spread, all disciples who were not interested previously were stunned. How is Enchanting so lucky? One disciple stared at the crushed stone pillar and was shocked when he noticed Enchanting was not hurt at all. If the fist landed on the human body, even if this person did not die instantly, they would be disabled. No one expected Enchanting to be able to dodge the first attack away by luck. Did senior brother Ji not use his full strength? Lin Feng raised his brows. He did not believe that Ji Xianyuan's attack would be dodged away by a new disciple. Ji Xianyuan frowned as his first attack missed. He stared at Enchanting, whose face still remained calm. His eyes sparkled. At the next second, Ji Xianyuan stepped on the ground and opened his fist. Strong air currents were concentrated in his palm. The gale palm. Elder Huang, who was at the side of the arena, was stunned when he saw Ji Xianyuan's palm. The gale palm was the most powerful palm skill in the outer sect. Its power was unimaginable, and even the wind created was extremely sharp. Within a second, Ji Xianyuan smashed his palm towards Enchanting's head. Enchanting squinted her eyes as the strong wind blew her hair up. Suddenly, a trace of cold light appeared in her eyes. The moment Ji Xianyuan smashed down his palm, her body leaned backward, and she raised her left arm. The white hand swiped across Ji Xianyuan's palm, but she did not manage to hold the palm. However, Enchanting's hand suddenly turned and grabbed Ji Xianyuan's wrist. Her feet pushed off the ground and jumped backward. She pushed down Ji Xianyuan's wrist and smashed towards the 8 trigram stage using the downward force. Chapter 321, The Top of the Outer Sect, 2, Boom. A huge crack appeared at the area where the palm landed. Tiny crack lines suddenly spread across the whole arena. Ji Xianyuan frowned and lifted his leg. Enchanting used her arm to fend off the kick. Her hand that was holding his wrist did not let go, and she used her leg to attack Ji Xianyuan's lower body. Ji Xianyuan supported himself with one hand to dodge off the kick. He rotated his wrist and held Enchanting's hand. He pulled strongly and smashed Enchanting towards the arena as he turned his body. Enchanting's eyes sparkled, and she used her elbow to support herself on the ground. She flipped backward and used her feet to kick towards Ji Xianyuan's face. The two of them released their hands at almost the same time. Ji Xianyuan backed off immediately to dodge the kick. Enchanting stood up and noticed the blood coming out from the cut on her face caused by cracked stones. Within a split second, the atmosphere between the two of them was totally different. There was complete silence at the square. The outer sect disciples were shocked as they witnessed what had just happened. Is it a joke? Am I seeing things? How is it possible? Enchanting fended off Ji Xianyuan's gale palm. She could even fight with him for a few rounds without being on the disadvantaged side. Lin Feng, whose face was calm, also hid the smile on his face instantly. Elder Huang was also astonished. The moment Ji Xianyuan smashed his palm, he thought Enchanting would definitely lose. He never imagined that Enchanting wiped off the blood on her face with her fingers and squinted her eyes. Ji Xianyuan was indeed strong as the top person in the outer sect. However, this fight, she must win. Enchanting took a deep breath and began her attack. She pulled out her sword and dashed towards Ji Xianyuan. Ji Xianyuan's sight changed as Enchanting approached her in a split second. Her speed was as fast as lightning. The cool light from the tip of the sword pierced straight towards his heart. Ji Xianyuan rotated his body sideways immediately and lifted his leg to kick towards Yi Qingtang's sword. However, it seemed that Yi Qingtang was prepared for that. The moment Ji Xianyuan lifted his leg, she lowered her arm, and the sword in her hand went past his leg and pierced towards his waist. Such a swift reaction. Ji Xianyuan was stunned and pulled out his sword using his right hand instinctively. A crisp sound was heard. Yi Qingtang's sword was fended off by Ji Xianyuan's sword. Senior brother Ji just used his sword. Many disciples opened their eyes wide as they stared at the sword in Ji Xianyuan's hand. Even when he was fighting with the third person, Lin Feng, on the honor roll list, Ji Xianyuan only used the handle of the sword to beat Lin Feng. He was forced to use his sword now. How ridiculous this was. However, Yi Qingtang was engaged in an intense battle with Ji Xianyuan when Lin Feng himself could not even compete with him. Even Dai Changming, who was in the same mission with Yi Qingtang before, was shocked by the battle. He was so nervous when Yi Qingtang stepped onto the arena. However, the nervousness was long gone, and his whole body was filled with astonishment. Chapter 323, The Top of the Outer Sect. 4. Yi Qingtang and Ji Xianyuan had more than 100 attacks on the arena. Every attack was intense and fatal. The arena that was cracked was about to collapse under the constant force. Under the intersections of the sword light, Yi Qingtang pulled herself away from Ji Xianyuan as she jumped to the corner of the arena. The delicate face was full of sweat now. No one could even imagine being able to break through Khanate level 9 in such a short period of time. Yi Qingtang put in all her effort to reach today's level and had the ability to fight against Ji Xianyuan. However, she could not drag this on anymore. Yi Qingtang narrowed her eyes. She had just entered the peak of Khanate level 9, so her spirit energy was not as strong as Ji Xianyuan's. She mainly relied on her fighting experiences from her previous life to be able to fight against Ji Xianyuan up to now. If she dragged on further, her spirit energy might not be able to hold on anymore. Yi Qingtang immediately made a decision in her heart. Ji Xianyuan's breath was not as stable as before as well. He was surprised by Yi Qingtang's abilities. If he did not experience the fight against Yi Qingtang, he could not believe the 15-year-old young lady had entered the state of Khanate level 9. However, when Ji Xianyuan was about to attack, Yi Qingtang moved first. Yi Qingtang lowered her body as she dashed over. It was surprising that she kept her sword back. Her right hand was placed on the handle of the sword, but it seemed that she did not intend to pull out her sword. Ji Xianyuan felt something was peculiar, but Yi Qingtang was dashing towards him. He shouted and focused all his spirit energy on his sword. The moment he raised his sword, countless scales were concentrated on the edge of his sword. Ji Xianyuan split his sword down immediately. The strong sword breath crushed everything around him. As Yi Qingtang approached him, her figure suddenly sparkled across his eyes. The tiny figure suddenly split into two, and he could not tell which one was the real one. Ji Xianyuan was stunned. Before he could differentiate which one was the real one, Yi Qingtang pulled her sword and pierced forward with her fastest speed as he was distracted. Ji Xianyuan only saw a streak of cold light flying out of Yi Qingtang's waist. As he withdrew his sword to defend himself, he then realized. His sword dropped onto the messy arena without him realizing that. A deep wound appeared on the hand that was holding the sword, and the wound spread across his entire hand. Blood was flowing out of his wound and dripping onto the ground. A sudden pain spread out from his chest. Ji Xianyuan lowered his head instinctively. His chest was cut by the sword. Yi Qingtang raised her sword up under the sight. The sword was covered with blood. A drop of blood flowed down the sword and landed in front of her. The whole square was dead silent. Everyone's gaze was focused on Enchanting's sword. Senior brother Ji, do not mind that. Enchanting swung her sword to get rid of the blood and kept the sword back. Ji Xianyuan touched the wound on his chest gently. The warm blood filled his fingers. His eyes were full of surprise. The wound was not very deep, but he was clear that if this were not a battle, Enchanting's sword would have killed him if she had used slightly more strength. Chapter 324, Victory 1, I lost. Ji Xianyuan took a breath and announced his defeat. He picked up his sword and signaled to Enchanting before walking off the arena. Enchanting was the only one on the arena now. Enchanting won. She really won against Ji Xianyuan. Everyone who watched the whole battle felt that it was so hard to believe. Was that real? Did senior brother Ji lose? The outer sect disciples would never believe what they just saw if they had not witnessed that with their own eyes. Ji Xianyuan lost, to a new disciple who just entered the sect for a few months. Furthermore, Enchanting only possessed a red spirit root. Everyone felt it was insane as it was too hard for them to believe. Elder Huang's face was full of astonishment. He only realized what had just happened when he heard the discussions around. He raised his head to look at Enchanting. It seemed to be a dream to him. Enchanting really defeated the top of the outer sect. Was it a joke? Elder Huang was in a complex mood. The feeling of joy slowly spread out in his heart. Previously, he did not agree with Enchanting's crazy decision, but now, he felt glad that Enchanting insisted. Who knew that this girl really would win? Furthermore, she defeated Ji Xianyuan. Elder Huang was delighted now. Enchanting did not lose on the arena, and instead, she earned the reputation for him. Such a miracle. No one expected that there would be such a reversion to the inner sect assessment. Ji Xianyuan, who always remained as the top, was defeated by Enchanting. The new disciple whose name was unknown previously suddenly became the top on the honor roll list. Everyone was having a heavy heart at the moment. Enchanting was the top on the honor roll list now. The others on the list all moved back by one position. Ji Xianyuan became the second, and Lin Feng was kicked out of the top 3. Anyone still want to battle? The warden went up to the arena. He glanced around and asked. Everyone on the honor roll list remained silent. No one dared to challenge Ji Xianyuan or Enchanting, who just defeated Ji Xianyuan. No one went up to the arena after a while, and the inner sect assessment came to an end. Elder Qin stared at Enchanting in a satisfied way. He agreed to give the permission of attending the inner sect assessment to Enchanting all because of her stubbornness. He did not expect that she would bring such a surprise. Her 30,000 Xianming points were really worth it now. Enchanting is not bad, I feel. She brings a little surprise to the inner sect assessment. The fist section elder commended after watching the entire battle. Not bad indeed, Elder Lin said coldly, but his sight landed on his grandson Lin Feng, who was kicked out of the top 3 on the honor roll list. Lin Feng had great improvements this year. I intended to take him in as an inner sect disciple. Other elders were not surprised with what Elder Lin said. Lin Feng's ability could qualify him to be an inner sect disciple. He was only kicked out of the top 3 by accident. The assessment has ended. It's time to give them the qualification to enter the inner sect now, Elder Qin said and smiled. Enchanting was the top person for the assessment, and the permission to attend the assessment was given by Elder Qin. The task of giving the qualification certainly landed on Elder Qin. Chapter 325, Victory 2. Elder Qin walked up to the ring immediately and announced the list of names who entered the inner sect this time. Apart from the top 3 people on the excellence roll, Lin Feng obtained the qualifications to enter the inner sect as a disciple of Elder Lin. The 4 people walked up to the ring. Ji Xianyuan's wound was already bandaged by the physician. Although his face was still a little pale, his extraordinary charisma never decreased. And what attracted people's attention the most was naturally Yiqing. At that instant, all the outer sect disciples looked at Yiqing in extreme shock. The match today challenged all of their knowledge. To enter the outer sect from the inner sect, most disciples would have to take years, and some might not even have this opportunity even in 10 years. Yet, unexpectedly, Yiqing actually topped the excellence roll after entering the sect for only a few months. This was the fastest speed in Xianling sect's history. From today on, you all are Xianling sect's inner sect disciples and must place the sect's glory as a priority. Elder Qin looked at the 4 valiant disciples before him and handed a waist tablet to each of them. That was proof that symbolized that they were in the inner sect. The 4 people accepted the waist tablet. From now on, they were no longer outer sect disciples but members of the inner sect. It was only one step away, but a world of differences. All the disciples below the ring looked on in envy. With this inner sect waist tablet, Yiqing and the other 3 people were different from them. Yiqing looked at the familiar waist tablet and a smile flashed across her eyes. In the previous lifetime, Yiqing spent countless years in order to obtain the qualification to enter the inner sect. Yiqing, Elder Qin suddenly said. Yiqing walked up immediately. Here. There was a smile in Elder Qin's eyes when he looked at Yiqing. Ever since Yiqing participated in the sect assessment, she had brought him many surprises. Now that she entered the inner sect with such brilliant results, it was really great. You placed first in the assessment this year. According to the sect rules, the number 1 can receive a reward from the Xianming Pavilion. Then, Elder Qin handed a scroll to Yiqing in front of everyone. Later, you can bring this scroll to the Xianming Pavilion and exchange for your reward. Yiqing received the scroll with a calm expression, though her heart was filled with flutters. Challenging Ji Xianyuan was exactly to obtain this reward. The disciples watched Yiqing keep the scroll with overflowing envy in their eyes. This scroll could allow Yiqing to choose any item below 50,000 Xianming points in the Xianming Pavilion, regardless of whether it was a cultivation technique scroll, weapon, spirit pet or elixir. To the outer sect, 50,000 Xianming points was simply an unimaginable number. Many people might not be able to earn so many Xianming points in their entire lifetime, and it was even more impossible to touch those precious treasures. Everyone could not do anything other than feeling envious of her. Yiqing's skills were displayed before their eyes, and even if they were envious, they could only watch on. After all, Yiqing entered the inner sect as the number 1 on the excellence roll. With their little skills, there was no way they could be regarded in the same category. Seeing that everything was settled, Elder Qin decided to return to the inner sect first. However, at that instant, an extremely swift figure flew past at a speed where no one could see it clearly. First, Yuan Wei achieved 4th place in the excellence roll, which brought him honor, and afterward, Yiqing took the number 1 position. His mood right now was relatively great. Thank you, Elder. Yiqing smiled. However, you must not slack off in the future. Once you enter the inner sect, you must work a few times harder. Elder Huang advised cheerily and then allowed Yiqing to leave. After bidding goodbye to Elder Huang, Yiqing wanted to return to her room directly, but before she reached her room, she was suddenly blocked by someone. Qin Huan, Gu Yanqiu, and others were actually standing outside Yiqing's room, and right when they saw her, they immediately stretched a hand out to stop her. There are so many treasures in Xianming Pavilion, and it's a difficult problem for anyone. What's so hard about it? Give me a random item, and they'll still want it. Dream on. Do you think you are Enchanting? As the people discussed, Enchanting and the rest had already arrived at the counter to exchange weapons. The warden behind the counter was the same person who showed Enchanting all types of weapons the other day. He found it strange after Enchanting left without choosing anything that day and only realized afterward that Enchanting's Xianming points had already been used to exchange for the intersect assessment qualification. Now that he saw Enchanting in the Xianming Pavilion again, that warden was no longer as excited as before. After all, the huge sum of Xianming points in Enchanting's hands were already all spent, and there was nothing he could squeeze from her. Chapter 328, Treasure Collection, 2. Enchanting faced the warden and said, "Can I trouble you to let me take a look at the demonic blood sword?" Demonic blood sword. Qin Huan had a face of shock. He had heard of its name before and did not expect that this sword was actually in their sect. Looking at Enchanting's stance, it was clear that she wanted it since a long time ago. At that thought, Qin Huan felt a chill down his spine. Strangely, he always felt that apart from the aim of entering the inner sect, Enchanting directly challenged Ji Xianyuan in the inner sect assessment was most likely, because she had her eyes on the reward for the first place in the assessment. The more Qin Huan guessed, the more he felt that Enchanting's thoughts were unfathomable. When exactly did she make this decision? Upon hearing Enchanting's words, the warden did not have any emotions on his face and said coldly, "It is difficult to show a treasure priced at tens of thousands Xianming points to people who are not exchanging for it. Do you have 40 Xianming points?" The warden's attitude was neither cold nor warm, and his words were indeed by the rules. "No." Enchanting replied honestly. The warden's expression turned even more indifferent. He showed those swords to Enchanting previously because he thought that Enchanting had enough Xianming points in her hands and made an exception. However, now, Enchanting had spent her Xianming points away a long time ago. How was she able to fork out 40 Xianming points? Although the warden heard the news of Enchanting participating in the inner sect assessment, being stationed at the Xianming Pavilion, he never paid much attention to the events in the inner sect assessment. Yet, honestly speaking, he did not believe that a new disciple who just entered the sect was able to top the excellence roll. Now that Enchanting did not have any Xianming points and was unable to achieve the number 1 position, she obviously did not have the qualifications to look at the demonic blood sword, which costs tens of thousands Xianming points. "Since you don't have enough Xianming points, I cannot show you the demonic blood sword according to the rules. If you want to get a weapon you like, according to the amount of Xianming points you have, you can choose from here." The warden pointed at the weapons displayed in the open that were priced at the thousands, clearly not paying her too much attention. However, there were weird expressions on the surrounding disciples' faces at the sight, and they reckoned that the warden probably had not heard of the results of the inner sect assessment. Qin Huan was a little dissatisfied to see the warden's attitude, yet since he was after all a warden, Qin Huan was in no place to speak. Enchanting had an indifferent expression on her face though. She looked at the warden who was already beginning to be impatient and said slowly, "I do not have 40,000 Xianming points, but it should be fine if I use this, right?" Then, Enchanting took out the scroll that Elder Qin gave her and placed it on the counter. The warden who was initially still idle looked at the golden scroll on the table. The casual expression on his face instantly froze and broke apart. He suddenly straightened himself and stared at the scroll in surprise. "Is it fine?" Enchanting asked. The warden did not reply to Enchanting immediately and carefully read the scroll. First in the inner sect entrance assessment. Eligible to exchange any treasure below 50,000 Xianming points in the Xianming Pavilion. And the words Yiqingtang were glaringly written on the blank for the name of the number 1 position. The warden's eyes almost popped out, and he was only this close to burning a hole in that scroll. Chapter 329, Treasure Collection, 3. The warden looked at Yiqingtang in astonishment. There was nothing abnormal with the scroll, and it was definitely impossible to be a false imitation. You're the first on the excellence roll this year. Yes. Yiqingtang nodded in reply. The warden had a complicated expression at that instant. Never did he expect that the first in the inner sect assessment this year would actually be Yiqingtang. After falling into a trance for some time, the warden finally returned to his senses and turned around to retrieve the box containing the demonic blood sword. This is the demonic blood sword that you asked for. When the warden placed the box in front of Yiqingtang, he still could not help but eye her up and down. It was not that he was snobby, but it was really the sect's rule. However, Yiqingtang winning first place was indeed unexpected. What exactly was this girl's background? He heard that Ji Xianyuan, the number 1 on the excellence roll, was in an insanely good condition. Unexpectedly, he was actually defeated by Yiqingtang. Yiqingtang was not too bothered with the warden's gaze as all her attention was focused on the sword box. At that sight, other disciples in the Xianming Pavilion could not help but gather around as they stretched their necks, wanting to see what kind of treasure Yiqingtang exchanged for as a reward for topping the excellence roll. Junior Sister Yi, is the demonic blood sword inside? Qin Huan's eyes twinkled. Yiqingtang nodded. The demonic blood sword is the weapon of Qi Shui, the invincible slayer, who was addicted to killing. Tens of thousands of lives were lost under this demonic blood sword. I heard from a long time ago that Qi Shui, the invincible slayer, ultimately became mad, and his mind was counterattacked by the demonic blood sword as he massacred too many people. Gu Yanqiu uttered, clearly having heard many rumors about the demonic blood sword. Although this sword was renowned, it was extremely dangerous as well. Counterattacked by the demonic blood sword. There's such a thing. Qin Huan was shocked. Gu Yanqiu said, this demonic blood sword is no ordinary weapon. It was made by Qi Shui, the invincible slayer, himself. He held a blood sacrifice of 10 people and used their blood to make a sword. This demonic blood sword contains an extremely strong evil aura. A chill ran down Qin Huan's spine, and he silently withdrew the hand that was about to touch the sword box. And just as Gu Yanqiu and Qin Huan were talking, Yiqingtang opened the box immediately. The moment it was opened, a cold mist was released. The simple-looking demonic blood sword was laying in the box quietly. Yiqingtang immediately held the sword and drew it out of its scabbard. In just a moment, the surrounding temperature seemed to fall along with Yiqingtang's action. There was a cold glint on the demonic blood sword of which reflected Yiqingtang's orbs. There was a faint inscription in dark red on the silver blade. Good sword. Delight filled Yiqingtang's eyes when she saw its unparalleled sharpness. She already fancied the demonic blood sword after only taking a look at it the other time. Now that she held the sword and looked at it again, she was ecstatic. Yiqingtang could not help but perform a set of moves with the demonic blood sword. Its shining light was so menacing that birds would flee in fear. A thin cold air diffused in the surrounding along with the dancing of the demonic blood sword. Qin Huan, who was uneasy after hearing the rumors of the demonic blood sword, was completely filled with admiration after looking at it. It really is a good sword. The warden said, of course it is. If not for the rumors, one can dream on about obtaining the sword without 100,000 Xianming points. Chapter 330, Treasure Collection, 4, 100,000 Xianming points. Qin Huan gulped silently. However, a moment later, he felt that, given such aura exuding from the demonic blood sword, 100,000 Xianming points were worth it. Should he be glad for junior sister Yi that there were bad rumors about this demonic blood sword? The onlooking disciples were dizzy from the motion of the demonic blood sword and were extremely envious. Even if it was really as dangerous as rumored, they would not give up such a magnificent sword if they had the chance. Swordsmanship was the main specialization of Xianling's sect, and if they could obtain this divine weapon, they would be able to scale even greater heights in the future. After finishing admiring the sword, Yi Qingtang placed it back into its scabbard and looked at the warden. I want to exchange for the demonic blood sword. Junior sister Yi, are you not going to look at other weapons? Gu Yanqiu asked carefully. Yi Qingtang shook her head. There were countless treasures in Xianming Pavilion, but no matter how precious or amazing they were not as good as an item that suited her. Moreover, using the reward of 50,000 Xianming points to exchange for a demonic blood sword that was worth 100,000 Xianming points, it was obviously a huge gain. Seeing that Yi Qingtang had made up her mind, Gu Yanqiu did not say anything else. The warden took the scroll and handed the demonic blood sword to Yi Qingtang. From that moment on, the owner of the demonic blood sword was Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang removed the ordinary sword that was initially hung on her waist and replaced it with the demonic blood sword. Although the sword was still in its scabbard, she could still faintly sense the coldness from the demonic blood sword. Junior sister Yi, can you let me touch this demonic blood sword? Qin Huan's eyes were filled with envy as he asked cheekily. Yi Qingtang drew the sword out readily and handed it to Qin Huan. Qin Huan held the demonic blood sword excitedly, but the moment his hands touched it, there was an icy sensation in his palm that pierced into his bones, and a powerful overbearing force enveloped his mind instantly. Almost a second later, Qin Huan frantically stuffed the demonic blood sword back into Yi Qingtang's hands. Although Qin Huan only held the sword for a short moment, his forehead was already covered in a layer of cold sweat. Senior brother Qin. Yi Qingtang looked at Qin Huan's slightly pale face in confusion. Qin Huan composed himself and swept that overbearing force away with difficulty. However, when he looked at Yi Qingtang, still in a state of shock, he realized that Yi Qingtang did not have any abnormalities when holding onto the demonic blood sword. What was going on? No. Nothing. It seems, this sword is still the most suitable for you. Qin Huan smiled stiffly with apprehension still lingering in his heart. Previously, senior brother Gu said that this demonic blood sword had the effect of counter-attacking the holder, and he thought that the rumors were not real. However, only when he really held on the demonic blood sword did he realize that the rumors were not completely baseless. This demonic blood sword was indeed iffy. Yet, looking at Yi Qingtang's reactions, it was obvious that she was not affected by the demonic blood sword at all. It seemed this sword was really suited for Yi Qingtang. Since junior sister Yi has exchanged her item, let's go eat a good meal. Treat it as me celebrating for you. Qin Huan shook his head, and his expression returned back to normal. However, his earlier reaction fell into Gu Yanqiu's eyes, and Gu Yanqiu only looked down slightly without uttering anything. It was not just Gu Yanqiu who noticed Qin Huan's unusual reaction upon holding the sword, the other disciples around them sensed it as well. Is this demonic blood sword really as heretical as rumored? Most probably. Otherwise, why would it be sold at a lowered price? Didn't you see Qin Huan's face turning pale when he held the sword just now? But, didn't nothing happen when Yi Qingtang held it? The disciples were confused and did not have a clue as to whether the rumors about the demonic blood sword were real or not. Chapter 331, Resentment. It was a good day for Yi Qingtang as she obtained both first place in the assessment and the sword that she fancied. Since Qin Huan was treating, the group would obviously not stand on ceremony, and Yi Qingtang even called Lin Long as well as Yun Shu to join them as well. She had to move into the inner sect the next day and could make use of this opportunity to meet up with them. Just as Yi Qingtang and the rest were headed for the celebration, two figures, quietly standing under a tree not far away, took in the sight. Su Wan pursed her lips and had a complicated expression as she looked at Lu Xiuwen, who was holding onto a crutch and standing under the tree with difficulty. After the disciplinary hall incident, Lu Xiuwen spent near half a month on the bed. The pain from 50 strokes of flogging caused him to be unable to participate in any cultivation for a period of time, but now, with a body that had yet to fully recover, Lu Xiuwen walked to the outer sect, and he glared at Yi Qingtang, who was crowded by Yun Shu, Lu Xiuwen, and the rest. "Senior brother Lu, your injuries have not fully recovered, and you should not stand for a long time. Why don't you head back to rest?" Su Wan said gently. Lu Xiuwen did not reply to her, and his eyes never left Yi Qingtang's back view. Until Yi Qingtang completely disappeared from his line of sight, he finally said something. "How can it be?" There was a strong restraint in his hoarse voice. "What?" Su Wan was a little confused. Suddenly, Lu Xiuwen clenched his fist and punched a tree branch near him heavily. "How can Yi Qingtang possibly be first in the inner sect assessment? She is a red spirit root. How can she win against Ji Xianyuan?" Lu Xiuwen felt like he was going to have a mental breakdown. When he was recuperating, he already heard that Yi Qingtang wanted to humiliate herself and took part in the inner sect assessment. To him, all of this was undoubtedly a big joke. He simply did not believe that Yi Qingtang had the ability to crawl into the inner sect. However, never had he thought that things would actually develop to this stage. Yi Qingtang entered the inner sect, and she really was able to get first in the assessment. "Senior brother Lu," Su Wan looked at Lu Xiuwen's ferocious expression, and fear filled her. Senior brother Lu, who usually appeared noble and arrogant, had a furious expression that was as frightening as a beast. "Junior sister Su, are you sure you didn't hear wrong?" Lu Xiuwen asked, refusing to give up. Although I didn't go to the assessment site, senior sister Lu Yin went there personally and told me the news right after the assessment ended. When I was on the way to find you, I heard many disciples discussing it as well, Su Wan said and pursed her lips. Not just Lu Xiuwen, but even she completely did not expect that Yi Qingtang, the disciple with the most inferior natural endowment amongst the new disciples, would actually be the first in their batch to enter the inner sect. Regardless of Su Wan or Lu Xiuwen, their spirit roots were way better than Yi Qingtang's, and even their family backgrounds completely crushed the unknown Yi family of Lin Town. However, yet Yi Qingtang had become an inner sect disciple who they could only look up to in the future. Lu Xiuwen took a deep breath and narrowed his eyes. "Junior sister Su, help me back to my room." He definitely would not give up like that. Even Yi Qingtang with a red spirit root could enter the inner sect, a mighty green spirit root like him would naturally have a chance to as well. The score between him and Yi Qingtang was not over. Chapter 332, Sword Boy and Attendant Girl, 1. The next morning, Yi Qingtang and the other 3 people walked up the stairs to the inner sect under the envious eyes of many outer sect disciples. The outer and inner sect were linked by an illusory door, and beyond this door, the outer sect would not be able to see the inner sect at all. Entering the illusory door once again, Yi Qingtang had a mood entirely different from in her previous lifetime. It was just a door apart, but the pavilions in the inner sect were lingering with spirit energy, and the amount of energy in the entire area simply could not be compared to the outer sect. In the inner sect, all the disciples each lived in independent small courtyards, and the new disciples were led to the northern wing. The warden brought Yiqing to her yard and continued bringing Ji Xianyuan and the rest to their respective residence. Yiqing looked at the elegant yard before her and lifted a hand, wanting to open the door. But before Yiqing's hand touched the door, it was already hurriedly opened by someone from the inside. A shy head popped out from behind the door. It was a young boy who looked only about 11 or 12 years old. His big and bright eyes fell on Yiqing, and once he saw an inner sect waist tablet on Yiqing's waist, his eyes suddenly brightened. Hurriedly opening the door wide open, he showed a bright smile on his tiny, fair face as he walked out quickly. "Lady Yi, Ni Shang, and I have been waiting for you. The courtyard is already cleaned up. We hope that you're satisfied with it." Yiqing looked at the child before her, and a thought struck her. The special treatment for inner sect disciples was not only in their place of residence and cultivation environment. Their day-to-day meals and clothing were served by people appointed by the sect. After entering the inner sect, every inner sect disciple would be accompanied by a young sword boy and attendant girl as arranged by the sect. These two people would take care of everything for the inner sect disciples. The growing child before Yiqing should be the sword boy whom Xianling sect allocated to wait on her, while Ni Shang, as mentioned, should be the attendant girl. "Lady Yi, hurry in." The sword boy welcomed Yiqing into the courtyard respectfully. The courtyard was not too big, but when compared to the outer sect's residence, it was many times better. Although the sword boy and attendant girl lived here as well, they stayed in the side room. It could be said that the entire courtyard was for Yiqing to use only. "What is your name?" Yiqing asked the sword boy. "My name is Fei Ying," replied the sword boy. "Fei Ying." Yiqing was slightly taken aback, and a surprised look flashed across her eyes as she looked at the young boy before him. The sword boys and attendant girls in the inner sect were not ordinary servants. According to the rules of the sect, only those recommended by powerful people had the qualifications to participate in the sect's entrance assessment. However, natural endowment and talent were not only present in descendants of influential family clans, and some gifted children occasionally appeared in ordinary families. It was just that these children did not have a good enough background to become a sect disciple. However, sects had given these gifted kids from a normal background some opportunities. Those who were young and had pretty good natural endowments could be recruited into the sect through another mean to become sword boys and attendant girls and wait on inner sect disciples. Honestly speaking, the position of these sword boys and attendant girls in the inner sect might just be slightly higher than those of outer sect disciples.